Hello, Mount Zion. Welcome to Give Us This Day. Today, I want to talk to you about a recent sermon that Pastor Ruben shared on a Sunday evening service. And in particular, I want to talk to you about the vision of Isaiah chapter 6, a recurring topic that we have discussed and that we have talked about in recent weeks. As Pastor Ruben shared, there were three stages that the prophet experienced as he encountered the presence of God. And I want to talk about that today. First, it is the stage of awe or wonder. When the prophet saw the throne room of God, he saw multitudes of heavenly creatures proclaiming God's holiness. And it is extremely important for us to realize that when we are in the King's presence, it is a moment of wonder, it is a moment of awe. We are, in a sense, experiencing something unique. If you want to compare it to something natural, it would be like being called out by the president at a special event, or being called out by a celebrity, and they call your name and they ask you to come to the front of the line so that you can stand next to them and get a photo with them. I mean, that would be a unique experience, but nothing like being in the presence of the King. The second stage is the self-awareness. When the prophet saw the Lord seated on the throne and he realized that the Lord is holy, that his essence is holiness, the prophet saw himself and became aware of who he was. And he realized and even stated, "Woe is me, I am undone." So his condition became apparent to him. He did not get caught up in the moment and the experience and the wonder of that encounter, but he realized where he was, who he was, and how he compared to the Lord. You could think of it in a natural circumstance and perhaps wonder, well, am I at the right place? Am I dressed for the occasion? Will I say the right things? Will I do the right things? Well, that's exactly how the prophet felt when he was before the throne room of God. He understood that God's holiness is amazing, that we are not in the same level, and that he was not in the same level. So that gives us the opportunity to take the third stage and come to that place of transformation. You see, it is important to ask ourselves, what did the prophet see? What did the prophet think? What was happening at that time? And in the vision, of course, he saw the holiness, he saw the heavenly creatures, he saw the place that he was at. In the natural, we can look at our lives and we can think of it this way. What are my thoughts? What are my motivations? What is actually influencing the way that I think or the way that I act? What actually drives me to action? You see, because those things become important. When you stand before the King's presence, you realize that all of a sudden, your thoughts matter, your actions matter, and your motivations matter. You see, there's nothing we can hide from the Lord, and our hearts, our minds, everything that we are is all exposed before him. And so even though we typically think that in the King's presence this is important, the reality is that it matters at all times. Where you go, where you are, how you conduct yourself, how you carry yourself, what kind of things do you speak about, what kind of things do you do. All of that is important at all times, because whether you are at the church and at the altar call, in an encounter with God, or maybe you're in your prayer time and taking time to dedicate to the Lord and give that intimacy with the Lord. The reality is that everywhere that we go, we are the King's ambassadors, and we have to be mindful of that. You see, in today's world, a lot of people are trying to avoid the responsibility of asking those questions. What is driving me? What is motivating me? Why do I think the way that I think? Why do I do the things that I do? And the world is quick to point a finger and actually find someone else to say, oh, they're responsible. That's what's influencing me. This person is influencing me. Oh, it's that relationship. Oh, it's that person that really gets on my nerves, and that's why I do the things that I do. You see, everybody tries to point a finger everywhere else. But the reality is that when we come before the King, just as the prophet did, he accepted responsibility. He recognized who he was and where he was. And today, you and I have the same opportunity. We have to ask ourselves, Lord, is it your truth and are your principles motivating me? Is it your word that is guiding my steps and that is taking me in a direction that I should follow? Is it you who's directing my steps, and am I trusting you in the things that I'm doing today? You see, because we can't do what we want. There are principles that guide our journey with the Lord. But the more we examine ourselves, the more we are willing to accept the responsibility, instead of just getting caught up in the wonder and the awe of being in the King's presence, it's there that we allow God's word and truth to actually begin to transform us. That's what happened to Isaiah, because ultimately he was cleansed, he was purified, and it was during that time that he saw himself in a completely different way. It was at that time that he was transformed and he became the prophet that he needed to be to the people of Israel. He became the man that God had called him to be. And today, you and I can do the same thing. If we're willing to accept the responsibility for what we say, what we do, and who we are, then we're going to stand in a much better place to be everything that God has called us to be. So today, don't get caught up in the awe. Don't get caught up in the wonder. Don't get caught up in the moment. Know where you stand and allow God to show you where is it that he wants to take you, where is it that he wants to lead you, and what he wants to do with you today. So God bless you, and I will see you next time.